about this, I want to give you some tips so you can start creating your dream life. Start becoming who you really want to be. Start being true to yourself, right? And so you can have that dream life. So you can live the life that you love. So you can live more in a state of joy and happiness instead of this constant fighting, this constant, it's almost like an anxiety, right? It's like you're fighting yourself. You know, you're like, oh, this, no, it's this, no, it's this. What is it? So I want to show you how I did that, and how you can do that. Okay, so grab a pen and paper or whatever you want to take notes with, and tune in because I think this video is really going to be helpful. My name is Nina Zapala. If you haven't met me before, you don't know anything about me, I am dedicated to teaching people spiritual personality typing. And what that is a roadmap to your true self. It is all about identifying yourself. In fact, I was so crazy about this, I wrote a book on it. It's called Unpack Your Personality, Let Your Inner Guide Be Your Travel Guide. And I'll talk a little bit more about this. But what I'm here to do is I'm here to teach you what I learned going through a 7-year life tsunami. One of the reasons I'm making this video is because I was at this stage. It was like, well, you just need to be that. You need to be a hitter. You need to do this. Well, I wouldn't have been in that pain and that deep struggle and those horrible situations if I would have known myself. You know, now I'm not saying that once you get to know yourself, everything's perfect, because it's not how it works. But what I'm saying is, I was in such struggle then because I was not being true to myself. I was believing in a lot of false beliefs about myself. I was letting other people dominate and create and narrate my reality, which is never a good thing, right? So what spiritual personality typing is, I use Myers-Briggs. You might get into astrology, you might get into the Enneagram, whatever your personality flavor palette is, it doesn't really matter. Because what matter is grabbing those key components of who you are, the elevated aspects of who you are. We're going to talk about that. And then embodying that. And then when you listen to that divine spark within, because if you've been on my channel, I talk a lot about it's your life is an inside out job. You've got to listen to your higher self, the bigger you. You have a smaller you, the ego, and then the bigger you. It's more expansive, it's more creative, it's unlimited, it's abundant, it's all the goodness of the world. And that resides within you, and that's actually a bigger aspect of yourself. We've just been so conditioned just to see just the material world, where you're the sensing, the touching, the tactile, all that stuff, right? And even our personality traits can get very swept away into that. That's not what they're here for. They're here to support that inner guide, right? That soul self that's here on a mission, that needs your exact traits to complete what it needs to complete on this great, grand adventure we call life, okay? So let's start jumping into that. If you want to learn more, pick up the book. It's on Amazon or wherever books are sold. The blog is another place to enjoy and start learning about personality typing with a spiritual understanding, okay? And that's just ninazapala.com. Anywho, so I was listening to this video, and they're saying, wow, and there's a lot of truth to it. And there's nothing, I'm not being naysaying about another person's video, but what I am showing is, let's open it up to some new perspectives. So maybe this new information will be even more helpful for you, because what they were doing was very helpful, because you do want to identify yourself, because you can't not know yourself. You can't go from like not knowing who you are at this present moment in time to somebody that you want to become, because you don't know. How do you do that? But it's so abstract that you're going to give up in a day, right? The cool thing is about knowing your personality type. I am an ENTP. For anybody that knows anything about ENTPs, go ahead, judge it out, whatever. Yes, I can be very stubborn. I can be arrogant. I can be a know-all, but I'm also have this great aspect of myself that sees things before other people do. I can see things about you that you probably don't see about yourself. And that's, that's an observer looking in. But my personality trait goes beyond that because it sees patterns. It sees patterns everywhere. It sees opportunities everywhere. It sees possibilities everywhere. And it looks for novel. It looks for the new. And it stays away from convention. Because for me, what's already done is done. It's boring. Like, why do I want to do that? Like, okay. But for some people, that's not the truth. But for me, it is. So see, just by knowing that about yourself helps you start figuring out, oh, okay, so these things are important to me. There's some value and some beliefs there about myself that are important. So I need to consider those. Right? Because you become what you choose. You become what you believe. You become what you think. So what happens though is a lot of time with personality typing, and you can see it everywhere. It's just terrific. They put you in these little stupid 1x1 squares, or there's all these memes. Like every introvert goes to a party and hides in the bathroom. Seriously, that is so untrue. And you know what? If I was an introvert, I'd be like, what's the right word I was thinking? Not upset, but see, I can be arrogant. So, but I'd be kind of pissed off. Let's just say it. Like, what the hell? You don't know me. You don't know that I go sit in the bathroom because I'm an introvert. Maybe I just don't want to be around you. And I had to get out, so I went into the bathroom. Who knows? It's always a perspective, right? So, but with that said, we're so trained into this cultural or these social cues that we're given that are beaten to our heads when we're a kid, right? That we kind of see just that aspect of it. But when you start studying your personality type, this is what gets really cool. I want you to start looking, I want you to see all sides of it, of course, because like I said, you have to know yourself. You have to understand your false beliefs as well as your true beliefs, like who you truly are, right? You have to understand both. But I don't want you to dwell on that, dwell on all those false beliefs. If you're on a mission of who you want to become, right? If you want that dream life, if you want to become who you're meant to be, if you want to be very integrous and live from your true self, your authentic way of being in the world, you have to study your traits. And what's so cool is once you start studying your traits, your becoming is already set. And let me explain this to you. This is like, I get so excited about this. But your becoming is the highest aspect of your personality type. It's all the benefits of it. It's all the benefits of the traits, right? So for me, like I said, I'm an ENTP. So my primary trait, now I talk a lot about spirituality because I don't see that this old paradigm of personality typing that began on the heels of World War II, began with great effort. Trust me, Myers and Briggs probably had to fight their butts off to get this done, right? Because two women, they didn't have a degree. Like, we can't believe them. Why not? They were working with Carl Jung. Okay, the grandfather of complex thinking and individuality. So, whatever. But so their whole premise for doing this was to make Carl Jung's work easier. And coming off the heels of World War II, like, they wanted everybody to help start understanding each other so we wouldn't have to go back into this war space. Commendable, right? Like, that to me is a really interesting truth about how this all started. So, isn't that what we want? Don't we want to better understand ourselves and everybody in our world? So, but what happened is this paradigm has gotten so distorted from the collective and from social conditioning and the powers that be that just like do this, do this, do this. So we've kind of convoluted it. I want to flip this idea around and show you how to do this from the inside out. So long story short, it's why I've attached like spiritual ideologies into each trait. Let's get back to this trait of extroverted intuition, which is my primary trait, or what I call, from a spiritual standpoint, my North Star. Once you know your North Star, you kind of have a roadmap, right? Or where you need to go. And you want to look at, sorry, this mosquito's getting all over me. So you want to look at it from, that's a high trait. That's a high truth, right? So that's a truth. So I already know that's a truth for you. Your North Star, whatever it is. Mine is extroverted intuition. So I already know that I like, I'm trying to get that little bugger. I already know that I like novelty. I have a disdain for convention, for what is, because it's already done, right? I just have a disdain for that. I love to see patterns. Like, what pattern? What's this patterning? What is it telling me? It helps me be very futuristic, or like, where's the opportunity here? So for Myers-Briggs, I saw an opportunity. There was a huge gap. There was no spirituality in it, right? Where's the soul? Where's the soul role in personality typing? Where's the soul's role? It's pretty absent. So I want to interject it and show you how, when you start looking at your traits, not only the higher aspect of your trait, but the spiritual aspect of your traits, how this all works together and puts you on that path of becoming, right? So instead of you looking out and saying, oh, I want to be this. I want to be this person. Okay. Which is cool, but does that match? Does that vibrate? Do those frequencies align? Like, are they lockstep with who you are? Who you are at your core? Who you are at your essence? Are the traits the same? Are the values the same? Are the characteristics the same? Are the beliefs the same? Once you understand your personality type, from that higher perspective, from that spiritual perspective, you'll begin to see, oh, so I already do have a foundation for this. I don't need to go and create this whole thing. No, you don't. It's already within you. It's already you. It's already you. We're just peeling back the layers that's been put upon you from society for how many years? You know, it took me like 50 years. Well, not 50 years, because when I was young, I wasn't doing this stuff. But, you know, all through my 20s, all through my 30s, all through my 40s. And I went into my 50s. And I'm like, come on, this is crazy, man. I got to stop doing this. This doesn't get me anywhere. This isn't who I am. And so that's when my 7-year life tsunami just went crazy. But now I'm showing you there's a foundation for this. There's a foundation for your becoming. So you don't have to look at this person and go, I want to be that person. Again, like, does it even match? Is that even the truth? The cool thing is, once you start knowing your personality type, you can, and I'm not saying it's a bad to look out and see, but you can look to other people with your personality type and say, oh, that's how they're using all their traits. Or that's how they're using it. And it becomes this very interesting look-see of what you could become. And then you need to figure out what resonates with you, right? How does that resonate with you? You know, this person might be like, and they're like, yeah, I like that, but I see where they're like me, but that doesn't really speak to me. And see, where this also gets a little bit more nuanced is in the fact that your life experiences have very much influenced and impacted your personality traits, right? And how you show up in the world. Because you could be an introvert, but you were raised by extroverts. So your personality type, or your introverted traits, can tend to be more extroverted in nature. And that could be right there. That could be the struggle of like, that never feels like, why doesn't this feel right? Because you're not extroverted, you're introverted. So it's not going to feel right. So see, you have to peel back some of those layers and look at your experiences in life and see how they've impacted your personality too. Because it's not just looking at your personality, which is kind of a set example of your traits, how they operate, how you show up in the world, their characteristics, their indicators, they're predictive in some ways. If you just take that, yes, from the foundations of foundational teachings of Myers-Briggs, but then you start layering in your life experiences, that changes the whole thing. That changes the whole dynamic of it. So you need to understand that too. You need to understand, like, okay, so I know this about myself, but why does it still feel off? Well, what in your life happened to make this feel off? You're going to have, and this is work. I mean, there's no rebirth without death. There just isn't. And that was a great, something I heard on the internet, which I thought, it's the truth, because that's what I did, There's going to be a death. There's going to be an unfamiliarity. There's going to be an unknown aspect of all this. There's going to be surrender. There's going to be releasing. It's not easy. And if you watch, I don't know if I posted this, but if you watch I was talking about in another video how I was going back into what I call, and what's known in typology speak, is your inferior trait, which I call an opposing trait from a spiritual standpoint, because it opposes that North Star. Like, it tries to shadow. It tries to block the light from my North Star, which is not a bad thing, because sometimes we need to go in and we need to reflect and we need to see what we're not seeing instead of just forging ahead, right? We need to see that. We need to go into the darkness for a little bit and figure this stuff out. And so that trait for me is introverted sensing. It is the exact opposite of extroverted intuition. So that's more about history, and taking what you know and bringing it into the present. It's about tradition and feeding the system more. It's more conventional, right? So, which is interesting, because my North Star is exact opposite. But if you don't know this trait, and this is where this kind of, there's another little gripe I have. It's like, we don't really use that trait. So I'm like, so what? There's nothing random here. The divine intelligence doesn't go, I'm going to give you all these traits, but don't worry about the last two, because those are kind of like, don't worry about those. No, that's not how it works. If you're on a path of becoming who you really want to be, you want to live that dream life, you want to be happy and more fulfilled and more joyful, you got to know all your traits, the good and the bad, because it all affects you. Characteristically, it shows up into your personality, into your reality. Thank you, Joe Dispenza. Right? And if you're not understanding this, the aspect of Myers-Briggs with your life experiences, this is something I will talk about this. Joe Dispenza said, you keep on showing up every day in this loop. 95% of us show up in life every day, the same day we did yesterday, and the day before, and the day before, and the day before. So if you're not going anywhere, if you're like, man, why am I so stuck? You're not stuck. You're just in a repetitive, behavior loop. You're just like, you're moving. You're still moving. You're still in a cycle of moving, right? You're still going forward. You're just going forward in a way you don't want to go forward. Because I believe that everything's energy and motion. We're all frequency. So the word stuck to me is kind of funny, because it's like, well, you're not really stuck, because energy doesn't really stop, right? So if you think of it, you're still moving forward, but you're moving forward using patterns and old ways that are keeping you in the same patterns and old ways, even moving forward. So you don't want that. Right? So you're going to have to look at yourself. And what I think is so interesting, and I've been experiencing this a lot lately, is you have to look, if you're on this path, okay, and you're starting to figure this stuff out, you're like, okay, I need to go back to my personality type. Look at the good, look at the bad, but really focus on embodying the highest aspect of the personality type, right? The highest aspect of each trait and what it can bring into my life. Write that down. Write all those down. Then you start writing down, ooh, well, this could do this. And this, because you know inside, it's going to start coming up. It's going to start bubbling up in you. Because the soul always knows. That divine spark within you, it already knows. It knows exactly what you need. So when you give it permission to become part of your life, right? It's gonna start messaging you. It's gonna start giving you like these little synchronicities and serendipitous moments. And people will come into your life. And they'll start supporting you. So you get this support, all this cool supporting energy that's coming in. So see, it's energy coming in. It's going to move you forward, but it's going to move you forward in a different way because you're not so stuck on these old patterns. Like you're not like in this ball, like just go, I'm moving forward, but I'm moving forward this way. You're moving forward with your open. Your hands are open. And so when you do that, it allows all these beautiful things to come in, right? So you're on that path. Here's the rub. Oh, this is never easy, right? But it's fun once you start getting into it. It's like, isn't it fun? It's like gonna be and explore and be the best self you can be, you know. And you show up in servitude. This gets fun. This gets exciting. Your life becomes more joyful. Yes, it's work, and it's hard work. Trust me, I know. 7 years tsunami was not easy. But what I was getting, let me get back to what I want to tell you is, you have a lot of people in your life, right, that know you very well. They might have known you since you've been a little kid. And so they're seeing you from that old perspective, that perspective that keeps you in that tight loop, right? Like they say, like people would say to me, like, oh God, you're so aggressive. You're this, you're that. Well, I'm not that anymore. That's not how I want to use my personality type, because that came from fear. That came from all the negative aspects of that trait, or the traits, plural, right? So I'm working myself to work myself into the Nina that's becoming. And that's going to be a lifetime of becoming. It just doesn't stop at, you don't stop at the train station, get off, go, okay, I've arrived. It doesn't work like that. Because you keep on, because you reach different levels of knowing, right? And you're like, ooh, now that I know this can come, and it will come if you're open to it. But let's get back to people that know you. They sometimes can actually block you because they keep on pulling you back into what was. I know. This is where it gets hard, especially if it's a family member or you have a close friend or your husband, right? It's hard, So you have to become very aware of that, and then that becomes a teachable moment for you. Like, this is who I'm becoming. I'm no longer this. I'm embodying this new Nina, right? She's a teacher. She's an author, right? She's a better version of herself. She's more patient. She's less aggressive. She doesn't know everything. So these are things that you need to express to others, and kind of, if you're trusting in that, only if you're trusting. If you're not trusting, just be the example. And if as the years go by, they're still pulling you in, it's time to break the ties with those people. And yes, it can be family. It can be a husband. Been there, done that. So, yeah, these are the things. But it's okay, because, this is where a lot of people get afraid, because they're like, oh my God, everything, I'm gonna lose everything in my life. Well, I know that for a fact. I did. But see, once you have an understanding that where you're going, you don't need that anymore. Does that make sense? So if you want to go this way and you're taking all this baggage into this, it's not going to work. And this is funny, because this is what I have on the front of the book. See this? I don't know if you can see this. She's traveling. Look at it. She's so in struggle because she's got so much baggage that she hasn't unpacked, and she's trying to move forward, and it's keeping her back, You know, that's it. She's going forward motion, but it's a struggle, man. And see in the back, look at her. She's like, I'm happy. Look, suitcase is smaller. There's no stuff sticking out. She's got her head up. She's going forward. She knows where she needs to go. So I talk about this stuff because I've experienced it. I've written about it. And now I want to share it with you. Because if you carry the baggage, first of all, if your old false beliefs, old narratives that aren't true to who you're becoming, those create a slowdown. People in your life that you've known forever, if they're not on board to where you're going, they slow you down, you know? Not to mention all the crap that's going on in the world. I mean, it slows you down constantly. So if you don't have your eye on who you're becoming, that focus, really, really focused on that, you're not going to get there. But what I'm telling you, the cool news is that you do already have the foundational tools of your becoming, right? And it's outlined in your personality type. All the good traits is your becoming. And then marry that with your experiences. How can you interweave your experiences? You know, how do you interweave that? You know, how do you do that? That's what I teach you in the book. But when you start looking at it, I'm telling you that your inner guide, your soul self, will guide you. And it's going to be a small step-by-step process, right? You can't go from who I am now to this person that you're not even there yet. You can't. How do you do that? You know, you're trying to step over, you know, an ocean. It's got to be small, incremental steps, you know. But we live in a society that said, oh, you've got to be big. You have 1 million people on your channels. You know, you need to be making millions and millions of dollars every month. Let's just start where we are, okay? Let's kind of ignore all that stuff. Focus. Laser-like focus. Laser-like. We start taking those small steps, you know? Start taking those small steps. And how you do that, you start observing yourself. I talk about this in the book. I don't know if I can get to this chapter real quick, because you guys will be like, what are you doing? Oh, here. I got it. And I talk about the flaneur. I don't know if you can see that. It doesn't matter if you can see it. Anyway, it says, a flaneur caught my attention when I read about it for the first time. Many, many moons ago. I just had to learn more. I'd been walking and wandering through places for decades. They say flaneurs rely on chance and intuition to make decisions and spontaneously embrace the unknown. So what does that mean? Some of you aren't spontaneous. You just aren't. It's not in your personality type. But I took the idea of the flaneur, somebody who strolls and observes, to a spiritual level. I'm always going to be talking to you about on a more spiritual level. So if a flaneur is just strolling and observing, everybody, regardless of your personality type, can observe themselves when they travel. And this is the perfect time to start stepping into that you want to become. Because there are no people around you that said, well, you're not like that. Why are you doing that? Have you heard that? I've heard that a million times. Why are you acting like that? That's not you. Well, it's who I'm becoming. So it is me. And I'm not saying lie to yourself. I'm saying embody the personality traits from their highest levels of well-being, from their highest mindset, the positive mindset, right? So you can embody that. And it's not lying to yourself. It's not like fake it till you make it. No, you're embodying the aspects of yourself that are already at their truest self. Does that make sense? They're already at the truth. So you're embodying the truth of who you are, that true self. That is who you are. From a characteristic, a predictive, a behavioral, and maybe a values, right? That's who you are from that. That's the foundational aspect of who you are, right? Then you have an experiential level of who you are. And then what's even more important is that soul, the soul of who you are. And that's where your meaning and your purpose and your passion come from, because it's on a mission to take you there, because it wants to evolve. We're all here to evolve and create. We're all here for betterment. That's why we're here. And where this gets really exciting is when you can step out of all of this lower level stuff, right? Like, I'm stuck on this, it's never, no. And you start going, oh, I'm in more joy. This is happening. This, you start going forward. Then you want to start sharing this with others. And when you become better, everybody around you becomes better, because your energy level is higher. You're operating at a state of more joy, of more understanding, of more self-acceptance. You're more empowered. It's all the goodies that you really want to be. That's where you're heading in that becoming. So that's exciting. And then when you get there, and I talk a lot about this in the travel industry, because so much of a planet is being trashed by people who are unconsciously traveling. They think it's more important for them to get the selfie and put some cool photo on Instagram for a minute, so somebody can scroll by and go, oh, that's cute, like, really? You know? Okay, I'll tell you a little story. I gotta share this story. So, when I travel, I'm an ENTP, so, of course, everyone goes right, I go left. It's just who I am. And so, I love gardens, I love flowers, I love nature. That's why all my videos are shot outside. It's 100 degrees out here. I don't care. I'm shooting my stuff outside, because the greenery should just make you smile. That in itself should make you smile, right? It may not, but it does it for me. So I was at a small island. I think it was in St. Lucia. I don't know where I was. It could have been Grenada. I forget where I was. Anyway, I was somewhere. I know it was in the Caribbean somewhere. And this lady had this cutest little garden. She had this cute little house, cute little bungalow, which I love, and her garden was so cute. Like, she had all these little flowers, and I said, and I just, said, oh my God, I love your garden. These are all tropical. I think it was in Grenada. I go, oh, these are all tropical plants, and they're just so pretty all together. And because I love the patterns, right? I love the newness of it. So I was just like, oh man, this is so cool. And she turned around and she goes, you're not going to take a selfie, are you? And I was like, no. I was like, okay. And so the story came out. It was like, somebody didn't even ask, went in her garden, trampled several of her flowers to take a selfie. I was like, what? Oh my God. I was not happy with that. But see, that person is operating now from the small you, that ego level of you. That's not enlightened, that's not self-aware, that doesn't have an understanding of themselves. They just want to participate in a world of materialism and consumption, which I'm not judging, that's fine. But for me, showing up and trampling somebody's garden to get a selfie for like a 1 second, or maybe to have 20 or 30, or I don't care if it's 100,000 likes, in the scheme of life, what is that? So when you start becoming, you get into that true self, your higher conscious self. The divine is emanating through you at all times. You become a light. You become a lighthouse, right? You will not do things like that. You will travel intentionally. And there's a whole chapter in the book, How to Travel Intentionally. So this book is kind of cool because it's like a roadmap to what I'm speaking of here. So if you're on that journey, you might want to pick that up. But when you start traveling intentionally, you don't do things like that. So when you don't do things like that, you're an example for somebody else. You're like, oh, this person's really cool, man. Because people gravitate, well, they gravitate to evil too. The not so good. The ego does. But when you're at a higher level though, when you are at that state, and people see your light, it's attractive. And people go to that, because that's what they're looking for. And so without knowing it, you, in your ordinary, so is that what they say, right? In your ordinary life, you're serving because you're an example of how to show up in the world in your betterment. And that's exciting because so many of us believe that we have to be this extraordinary superstar, pop star, celebrity, influencer, whatever it is. None of that's true. None of that's true. And I've said this on this channel, and I'll say it again. If I can help one person become who they are meant to be, I'm like so freaking happy, because I don't know how that one person's gonna, what divine intelligence has planned for their life. I have no idea. I have no idea. But just because it's one doesn't mean that's insignificant. So just because you feel like, oh, I'm just doing an ordinary thing. Yeah, cool. You're being ordinary extraordinarily because you are tapping into that light. You are listening to the divine within you. That's big. And if you have kids, man, it's like, whoa. So you're training future generations. You're conditioning future generations to rely into that. And the cool thing is and if you are a parent that is aware and has self-understanding and is self-empowered, you automatically do that for your kids. And you don't want your kids to be little mini yous. You want your kid to be who they're meant to be, because their soul has a divine purpose too. It's how you interact with your husband or your partner or whatever you want to call that, with your friends, at work, online. I mean, can you see how knowing your identity from a very positive, spiritual understanding is the path of your becoming? So, I hope this made sense, because I tend to go on and on. I'm an ENTP. I can talk about this for days, and I love it, but I'm really here to help you figure out your becoming, to reinvent yourself, if that's the path you're on. So let's just break this down real quick, because I know I've been babbling now for a little while. Number one, quit looking outward. It's not an external thing. It's an internal thing. Come into yourself. Identify your personality type. I use Myers-Briggs if you need some help with this, because like 65% of the online tests give false positive results, so you don't want to go into it with a false positive. So I do one-on-one consultations for that, they're cool, because it's not only Myers-Briggs, it's spiritual too. So you get a twofer, it's a BOGO. So I do that. But that's the first step, right? The second step is start looking at your life experiences, right? There's never a wasted moment in your life. So whatever you've gone through, and especially the things that have been a little harder for you, like my whole life tsunami, it birthed this calling. It birthed my true calling, spiritual personality typing. And I wrote a book. So that was meant to be. But that was in the depths of me breaking down so I could break through, right? So look at those life experiences too, where you've hit rock bottom, because they will tell you a lot. And then overlap them. How do they overlap with your personality type? Then I'm going to say it again. I always say this. Sit down with a journal. I love pen and paper because it's your energy flowing through it, right? And whereas a computer energy is intermingled with a bunch of stuff. So I like to do pen and paper. Sit down every morning and say, divine intelligence, please show me what I need for this day. Please show me. Right? And don't be discouraged if there's not an action to take. Because sometimes, and this is often better, and Abraham Hicks talks about this all the time, It's better to reflect and listen to what the divine self is telling you, right? Just listen before you take the action. So when you do take the action, it's divinely inspired instead of ego inspired. Because if it's ego inspired, it's gonna take you longer to get to where you're going, right? So you want to listen to that. That is a really key component of this journey, right? It's a key component. So those are 3 little small steps that you can do right now on the path of your becoming, right? Hope that gives you some clarity. If you need clarity, I also do clarity calls too. I think a lot of people are looking for that, which I think is amazing, because it tells me that we are awakening to our true selves, our powerful selves, right? The unlimited, abundant, imaginative, highly creative, beautiful, peaceful people that we are meant to be here. We're supposed to live a life of fun and joy, not this drudgery of, well, I gotta go to work, and oh my God, this cubicle, and I hate this part, all that. No, it's not what we're here for. So I hope you enjoyed this. And if there's something that resonates with you, I'm so pleased. I'm just so, so pleased. Drop a turquoise comment, because turquoise is about peace and tranquility, right? So drop a turquoise heart in the comment section below. If you're so inclined to start your journey, what's 25 bucks for a book. Amazon, wherever books are sold, Barnes and Nobles, it's everywhere. It's on Apple Books too. It's everywhere. Grab the book, start reading. And if you have questions, drop them into the comments. And then the blog is free, and I do these videos all the time. So there's so much, there's so many resources. And if it's not me, it's somebody else. If you don't resonate with me, good, don't. You do you. I mean, I'm not here for everybody. I'm not. But if it's you're looking for, and you want a new perspective on how to get to your becoming, I hope you find my advice and my teachings to benefit and to help you on that path, because I didn't have that. I did not have that. I did not have that. And the psychologists and places I was going to go, when I was going through that journey, to me, didn't provide me with what I needed. It was probably because they're conventional, right? But it was just like, well, you have to go back there. I already know that. I already know about my childhood. I know that. I'm getting heated because it's like they tell you to do that. And you're like, I know that. That's not helping me. What action can I take? Why am I still doing this, though? If I already know this, why am I still doing this? Because it's something within your personality type that you haven't looked at closely, right? You haven't looked at it. Because from your highest, we live in a dualistic world. The highest aspects of your trait, there's going to be a lowest aspect of the trait. It's like a stick. You got the highs and lows, right? Or the lows and the highs, however I did that. That's what you need to look at. And then where did that stem from? Okay, well, that was here, and that was then, and that was, but this is now. So let me walk down, take small steps, but get there, right? Because you don't want to dwell on that. You don't want to focus on that anymore. That's already done. Let's go here. Let's go to where we are now. But it's good to know where it came from, so when it arises, you're like, oh, I know that. I know why I was doing that. But, my mom's not here, my dad's not here, or my husband's no longer in my life, whatever those things are, whatever caused that, right, negative emotion in you, you start recharging it with a positive charge. Ooh, I lived through that. I've already walked through that. I don't need to walk through it again, but I want to walk forward. So let's do this. Let's shift that into my becoming. Anyway, I hope this helps. You guys, I really appreciate everybody that's on my channel. I know it's small. I kind of like it small. I like cozy. But I do appreciate every single one of you. I thank you so much for, liking my stuff and sharing it out and commenting. Please comment. Like I said, drop a turquoise heart, peace, calm, into the comment section. I'll be back next week. And I have some shorts this week. Oh, and you know what I'm doing? Because one of the things this week on the blog, it's going to be about best beaches in the U.S. for your travel type. Because I believe travel, when we talked about people judging you and seeing you, travel kind of takes you away from that. And it takes them away from who they always are too. So you're kind of bumping into these versions of people. That's why people in travel all the time, they're like, no, travel's a mess. Well, yeah, because you're bumping into versions of people that they really aren't who they are in the daily grind. That's a beautiful place to start, experimenting with this whole who you want to become. So that's going to be on the blog probably Wednesday. I'll do a little short check in with y'all. But anyway, I thank you all. Have a great rest of, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.